Some of the most creative artworks of the 19th century were never framed. They traveled folded, stamped, and forgotten. Before postcards and before photography took over everyday life, people turned envelopes into art, not professionally, but for fun, humor, affection, and sometimes quiet rebellion. Today, we're uncovering the forgotten history of envelope art, who made it, why it existed, and what these drawings tell us about how people once experienced communication. Before the 1840s, sending a letter was expensive and formal. Mail wasn't casual communication. It was used mainly by aristocrats, wealthy merchants, clergy, lawyers, and government offices. Ordinary people did write letters, but rarely, and only when absolutely necessary. The person receiving the letter usually paid for it. The price depended on distance and the number of pages. A single letter could cost several days' wages for a working person. So every word mattered. Every sheet mattered. Nothing was wasted. In these times, most letters didn't use envelopes at all. People wrote on a single sheet, folded it carefully, sealed it with wax, and wrote the address on the outside. The letter was its own envelope, but envelopes did exist, just not for everyone. In the late 1700s and early 1800s, aristocrats, lawyers, and institutions used thick, embossed envelopes to signal authority and status. Then, in 1840, Britain did something radical. It introduced the penny post. For the first time, anyone could send a letter anywhere in the country for 1 penny, paid by the sender. Distance no longer mattered. The cost didn't change. Suddenly, mail was affordable, predictable, and frequent. This changed everything. Letters stopped being rare events and became everyday communication. People wrote to friends, to family, to lovers, just to say hello. And just as important, envelopes became mass-produced, plain, cheap, blank. Those blank envelopes were revolutionary. They no longer signaled class or authority. They were no longer precious. They were disposable. That's when envelope art begins. Not because people suddenly became artists, but because the envelope stopped being sacred. It became a surface, a pause, a chance to say something before the letter was even opened. Most envelope art is drawn in pen, ink, or charcoal for a simple reason. It had to survive the journey. It had to dry fast, not smear, not damage the paper. That necessity created a style. Loose lines, expressive gestures, suggestion instead of detail. The drawings feel alive because they had to be quick. This wasn't fine art, it was communication. These drawings weren't just for the person receiving the letter. They were for the postman, for the sorting office, for anyone who handled the mail along the way. That's why so many envelopes play with the stamp, the address, or the postmark. Artists turned official postal elements into part of the image, as if the system itself became a character in the drawing. Sometimes the stamp crushed someone, sometimes it became a weight. Sometimes characters physically carried the address. This wasn't decoration, it was performance. The envelope wasn't finished until it traveled. A huge amount of envelope art is funny, sometimes quietly, sometimes absurdly. Victorian humor loved exaggeration. Ordinary life turned into visual jokes. What's interesting is what isn't there. This wasn't sharp political protest. It wasn't rebellion. It was social commentary that stayed just safe enough to circulate. A way to laugh at modern life without breaking the rules of it. The envelope became a place where humor could exist without consequences. If antique documents and ephemera interest you, you can find hundreds of vintage illustrations and journal kits in my Etsy shop. The link is in the description. Animals appear everywhere in envelope art, and that's not coincidence. Animals worked as visual shorthand. Everyone understood them instantly. A bird meant travel. A dog meant loyalty. A horse meant endurance. A lion meant power and empire. By using animals, artists could say things indirectly, with humor, symbolism, or satire, without writing a single word. In a way, animals made envelope art readable even before you learned to read. Some envelopes don't just bend reality, they ignore it completely. Rabbits wearing coats, characters performing impossible actions, scenes that feel like they escaped from fairy tales. This wasn't escapism, it was play. Not all envelope art tried to be funny or clever. Some of it is deeply personal. Flowers, romantic couples, portraits, soft gestures. These envelopes acted like emotional previews. Before the letter was even opened, the recipient already knew the tone. One of the most recurring themes in envelope art is home, cottages, villages, countryside scenes, familiar streets. This makes sense when you remember how mobile the 19th century was. People moved for work, empire, war, opportunity. Letters became emotional anchors. Drawing home on an envelope wasn't nostalgia. It was reassurance, a way of saying, this still exists, I still belong somewhere. These envelopes are about distance and the desire to close it. Some envelope artists turned the surface into a kind of introduction. They drew themselves, their work, their role in the world. Before profile pictures or business cards, an envelope could say, this is who I am. It wasn't vanity, it was identity, a visual signature traveling ahead of the message inside. Envelope art didn't die suddenly, it faded. Postcards replaced envelopes as visual mail. Photography took over everyday imagery. Communication became faster, cleaner, more efficient, and efficiency leaves very little room for play. Envelope art wasn't decoration. It was social media before media, memes before memes, visual conversation before screens. Once you notice it, you start wondering what else we've lost by making communication faster and quieter.